religious trauma is a thing, especially if rape is a part of your church. And what I say about that is even the people part of this church are all about, being against rape and virtue signaling, and it's virtue signals. What are your virtues, especially when you are a part of the rape machine that is the church? Okay. This is a chaotic relationship. You do not get to go both ways with it. Alright? The reason why churches rape kids is to emotionally stunt them, and the big chunk of that is the enmeshment relationship style. The enmeshment relationship style is a non-sympathetic and non-emotional relationship. It is an empty, hollow relationship based on nothing. Okay. When humans are left together in a room, instead of just staying spread out, they naturally gather at one end of the room, regardless of the situation. It's just human nature. That is an enmeshment, because those people do not know each other. Alright. Now, this is the desirable psychology, emotionally stunted. Chronic self-absorbed, self-preoccupied behavior. They think of themselves first, limited or complete lack of empathy, lack of guilt or remorse, disregard for your well-being, safety, and those you love. They do what feels best. They do not learn from past mistakes and continue to repeat behaviors that has negative consequences. Lack of self-reflection. Inability to take your perspective, stand in your shoes. History of conflicted drama in relationships. History of denying reality due to effective realism. Reality is what it feels like versus what it is. That is important for churches because they believe complete nonsense. That means you can just make up reality. History of distorting reality, making up new narratives about situations to deal with it. They lie because they don't like agency and they don't like accountability. History of impulsive behaviors, more feeling than thinking, so they do what feels best. Everything's emotional. There's nothing smart about the behavior. Enmeshment in relationships instead of emotional intimacy may focus on physical things versus emotional. Stuff and things, because stuff and things can't hurt them because they can't process their emotions. They do not do emotional work. They can't process their emotions. They cannot repair relationships effectively. And spite brain, the need to get back at people. Okay. So you're in this church, you join, you get raped, you become emotionally stunted, and there's also trauma brain, and they also do LSD trips to fuck people up. And I don't know how these things aren't just put under, like, cult practices, but cults in everything else in America, they're all protected under the First Amendment. And the First Amendment goes too far, okay? Because this is completely destroying somebody's psychology, even their potential to live a meaningful life to some extent. Sigmund Freud said, religion has a way of emotionally has a way of infantilizing people. Infantilize means you stay in the mindset of a child. That is what that means. Like I said, the religious churches feed off, like, there's a reason churches get in trouble for pedophilia. There's a reason there are no churches that are immune to sex abuse cases. All churches have sex abuse cases, and they are designed like this. Like the church I keep rambling on about, they were raping the Boy Scouts so they could get them emotionally stunted, so they would develop an enmeshment and then join the church. And reality's as it feels. Okay, everything's emotional. It's like your emotions, in my opinion, should always you're driving a car, your emotions should be in the back seat, bare minimum. Passenger seat if you really want to annoy me. Okay. If they're in the forefront of your mind, you're a child. Okay. Your emotions are strictly reactionary. The thing I'm getting at here is all churches also hate Sigmund Freud. And, dude, I just remember this when I was talking about the ego and superego, and how these guys from the church are like, And I guarantee you, if I tell them you're infantilized, they're not going to like that because they're men. It made me a man. I remember so many of these guys saying that to me. It made me a man. And it's just, And their idea of being a man is a guy that takes it in the ass mentally, physically, and emotionally. That's what a man is to these people. Like, I don't get it, but I also believe a big chunk of this is not having your own values as a human being. And I think what happens with people is they're like, I'm emotionally stunted, I need direction, I need help. And they go to a church, and a church is not the place to get help. It's a great place to get taken advantage of, though. They want your money. That's it. I think, look, like I was talking about, if your values are like you're against rape, then you're against your own church. You're against molesting children, then you're against your own church. Okay? There's nothing smart about taking a pedophile's model and turning it into a massive fucking program that is just a rape machine. And it is a rape machine. And with this church, they get even further off the rails with eating people's brains. And literally, when you're the president, because I'm the former president, they literally like explain to you the entire thing is just about stealing other people's stuff. That even the guy called Briggs, he when he ran into these women with their telepathic powers, he wanted their powers, so he ate their brains. Like, that's not your power, okay? If you were born with it, it would be your power. The fact that you have to eat somebody's brains to get it tells you that you're interfering in systems that don't exist. And I would even argue the women themselves are emotionally stunted because they believe a bunch of dumb nonsense. And what happened here is you have an emotionally stunted idiot that's a child. He meets somebody that tells him, I'm special, I'm unique, and he wants their specialness and he wants their uniqueness because he thinks it's going to make their daddy love them. And that's another function of churches, once again. People with mommy and daddy issues are always religious people, okay? Maybe not 100% of the time, but it is related because the church is the first love, no matter what. The church is the first love, okay? The wife might be the second or third love, because even in this church, like, you love your church, or you love the leader, you love the church, and then you love your church leader. Okay, so it could be like the fourth love, okay? And these guys are not above outing their own kids, throwing out their family, turning them into black sheep, kicking people out because of their religion, okay? And it is ridiculous. And that in itself causes trauma. So they traumatize their kids. Their kids want daddy to love them, and daddy tells them, if you love the church as much as I love the church, or if you love God as much as I love God, like, give that love to a bunch of guys that take your money. They deserve it. Yeah. Yeah. And we got into that. Like I said, this is just the critical fucking points. There's an example of emotionally stunted where it's like these two kids, and one of the kids has a tummy ache, and the one kid that's empathetic is like, oh no, like, your tummy hurts, and what can I do to help? And the emotionally stunted kid just punches the kid with the stomach ache, because the emotionally stunted kid doesn't know how to process that kid is upset him, and because he's upset, he's reactionary, and he just decks him, because now he doesn't have to worry about that kid's tummy ache because he hurt him. Like, this is how off the walls this shit gets. And once again, if your religion does not align with your values, what are you doing? Okay, do you actually believe that the Aryan race needs to be in charge of everything just because the color of their skin? Okay. Do you really believe billionaires need all their money and there shouldn't be any taxes for them? Do you agree with that we don't need healthcare for all? Okay. Because these are serious things, and no, you're not going to bend the will of your church to your will. There are systems in place to make sure that doesn't happen. Regardless of how hard you try, you're not going to bend your church. You would be smarter to just go start your own church, okay? Like, without the rape and the murder, okay? And once again, rape, murder, killing, poisoning, brutalizing, attacking, alienating, doing all these awful things. And are these aligned with your values? Okay. And if you find yourself screaming, I don't care, congratulations, you're emotionally stunted. Alright. Probably not worth the time. I keep seeing a lot of these videos about integrity. And I think about that in regards to values, because Republicans love the virtue signal, but they have no real values. Their values is themselves, and when your value is yourself, you are amoral. Alright. Are your morals important to you, or would you rather just pop LSD the rest of your life because you feel bad about something you did? Okay. I wanted to talk about Peter Pan, because the original story of Peter Pan is, you talk about like that stuff I was talking about earlier, how the mommy and daddy issues. Everybody has mommy and daddy issues, just some people have it way worse than others, and churches exacerbate this. Peter Pan in the original story has mommy and daddy issues, and his whole thing is he's basically emotionally stunted and does everything at the end of a sword. Remember, emotionally stunted people do not have sympathy or empathy, and they don't have guilt or remorse. So he just walks around holding people up at the edge of a sword, and he runs the Lost Boys at the edge of the sword, and the Lost Boys are not allowed to grow up. And this is all about control, and this is what happens when you traumatize somebody. They develop control issues, especially at a young age. If you do not feel safe and secure as a kid, you have control issues when you grow up. You are insecure. So Peter Pan is insecure. And he wants that unconditional love that gives him security. He's a coward. Alright? In the story of the Lost Boys, everybody's terrified of him because he has a weapon, and everything is under the threat of death. The Lost Boys are going to imagine food. They're going to do everything he wants because he's threatening them. Eventually, when he runs into Wendy, he basically threatens to kill her if she doesn't give him the unconditional love he didn't get as a kid. And she tells him, you're basically not going to be threatening people into getting love like that. Nobody's going to give that to you if you're just going around with your sword threatening people. And he doesn't like that. So she basically gets him to put down the sword, and then she basically gives him the motherly love. And his relationship with her is perverse because it is one of mother and child, and he gets that unconditional love. And the other Lost Boys come in contact with Wendy, and they get the unconditional love, and then go, maybe growing up's not that bad, because like you can end up with a woman and end up in love, and like maybe the world's not that scary, basically. And Peter really doesn't like that, but he does return Wendy to her family. But he also refuses to grow up. And the whole story of Peter Pan and the original Captain Hook is Captain Hook was one of the Lost Boys that grew up. He made the mistake of growing up, and Peter tried to kill him. That's why he's missing a hand. Peter tried to kill him, and that's their real fight between Peter Pan and Captain Hook, and why they hate each other. Is Peter Pan is evil, but he's evil because he's emotionally stunted. And they talk about in the original Peter Pan story, they're joyful, they're happy. Like, they're happy. But there's more to life than just hedonic happiness, okay? But they also speak about how children are joyful and cruel because they don't have a developed superego. And this, in my opinion, is how a church works. Peter comes on as a great guy when he speaks to the other Lost Boys, and he offers them everything they could want. Everything you could ever want. And then as you get to know him, it becomes under the threat of death. He stops caring because he got you to join, and then he just starts telling you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you. If you don't do what I say, hey, I have a sword, I'm in control, once again, you do not want somebody like that in control of anything, okay? Because they're going to go insane with power. I believe Peter Pan is just the true story of how fascism works. It is a scared, little, insecure person that desperately wants control of everything. And they want everything for themselves. So they're the most greedy, selfish person. I think about the guy that started this church. He saw the unconditional love Jesus got, and he wanted that. And he wanted to replace it, so he just took it. Okay. It is weird to think of like how Peter Pan in modern day is this amazing hero, and but he's infantile and he behaves like a child and he thinks and operates like a child. And there is a weird perversion, especially in America, with the childlike psychology of being a child, like, and something about operating like a child and having power is just something that makes people's brains go crazy. And I think there's a lot of toxicity in that culture because it implies that being irresponsible and powerful are amazing things. And I'm not saying that there isn't fun. You can't have fun being responsible. But I am saying there is a perversion with it. And it is perverse. And I would argue this church is one of the most perverse because you have a bunch of emotionally stunted people who are effectively children going around poisoning and murdering people and then screaming they're the victims in it. Like, yeah. I had examples of this, but specifically malignant narcissistic psychologies in particular are children, and they operate like children, and you should never have a child in control of anything, because they're going to do the dumb child thing every fucking time. Just because somebody's 45, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years old does not mean they do not operate like a child. Okay? They operate like a child. The emotionally stunted means they are stuck in the psychology of being a child. Like, Peter Pan is a bizarre phenomenon, but I also think of Jurassic Park, and they talk about how Hammond in Jurassic Park has a childlike, he's a ultra wealthy person, has a childlike mindset. When he was a kid, he wanted to play and see dinosaurs. So he grew up and he was really rich. He created Jurassic Park, and he didn't care about the consequences. He didn't care about how serious it is to bring life into a world. He didn't care about any of that stuff. He wanted dinosaurs, and he got dinosaurs, okay? And when he put the people through the park and everything goes to shit, you think about it in the movie, and Steven Spielberg talks about this. He was like, he loved Hammond because Hammond had this childlike psychology about it. Oh, there's so much wonder. Yes, there's much wonder in life, and wonder is a good thing. But it can also lead to atrocities when you don't balance your consequences, okay? And Hammond didn't balance his consequences in chaos theory. Chaos theory means regardless of how perfect your plan is, something can always go wrong. That's what Eli Malcolm is. He's a chaostician. He recognizes something can always go wrong. What happens in Jurassic Park? The power goes out. Or technically that guy steals some shit and fucks up the computer system. And he's trying to make himself money because Hammond's underpaying him because Hammond doesn't care. I don't care. And underpaying his employees resulted in his park collapsing. Okay? Because he didn't care. He only cared about his dinosaurs. And later he's eating ice cream in the kitchen, explaining that it'll go bad because the power's out. And he's kind of self-immiserating in that scene, which is an emotionally stunted behavior. And through the movie, if you pay attention, he's always smiling, he's always happy like a small child. Whereas Malcolm literally is like, this is stupid and dangerous, and there are consequences for doing things like this. And nobody here seems to think about that, and even the archaeologists are like, wow, this is amazing. Yes, it is amazing, but it is also dangerous. And Jurassic Park is a fantasy, but that is where putting somebody with an emotionally stunted mind can lead. Okay? There has to be a form of responsibility and accountability for their actions, because those two things force people to grow up and it forces them to think, which is something emotionally stunted people hate. Thinking is nuance to them.